They were the last ones sent in, and most never came back. On the black, hot volcanic sand of jima, the US Marines had no choice but to use their most feared weapon, flamethrowers. These flames could burn enemy bunkers and caves, but the men carrying them paid a terrible price. Most didn't live more than 4 minutes. This story is not just about a weapon, that's about a living hell, and the brave men who walked straight into it, knowing the cost. Before we speak of fire, we must understand the stone. Jima was no ordinary island. It was a jagged, black scar, carved deep in the Pacific Ocean, only 8 square miles of volcanic rock, steaming with sulfur, whipped by relentless wind. No trees, no rivers, no shelter. Yet, to the US military, this lifeless rock was priceless. Sitting exactly halfway between the Mariana Islands and Japan, it guarded the crucial flight path of B-29 bombers heading to strike the Japanese mainland. If America seized Jima, they'd secure an emergency landing zone and a base for fighter planes escorting bombers. Failure would turn the island into a graveyard. The Japanese commanders saw this battle coming months before. Under General Tatamichi Kuribayashi's orders, they didn't just dig trenches, they turned the island into a nightmare. Over 11 miles of tunnels sliced through the island's core, command posts, mortar nests, machine gun pillboxes, and supply caches hid deep inside the mountain, shielded by thick steel and concrete. So well hidden, not even aerial surveillance could find them. Their goal was clear: bleed the Americans dry. Kuribayashi was different from other generals. He knew the Americans would eventually win, but he vowed to make them pay for every inch. To make the cost so heavy, the US might reconsider invading Japan itself. His plan was simple: delay, ambush, and sacrifice. No wild charges, no bonsai, silence, traps, and death lurking beneath. By February 1945, when Marines landed, they weren't stepping onto an island, they were stepping into a slow-moving death trap. On February 19, 1945, the US unleashed one of the war's heaviest bombardments. Naval guns hammered the island for days. Bombers dropped tons of explosives, turning the earth into a cratered wasteland, setting the sky ablaze. But they weren't bombing soldiers, they were bombing ghosts. Most Japanese defenders waited deep underground, untouched and ready. Then came the landing. Higgins boats unloaded thousands of Marines onto black volcanic ash. This beach wasn't like Normandy's. The ash was soft, sticky, swallowing boots, jamming tanks, and slowing every step. No trees to hide behind, no rocks to shield behind, just endless black sand and open sky. The silence was haunting. For more than an hour, no shots fired. Some Marines hoped the bombardment worked, others feared a trap. Then, suddenly, chaos exploded. Hidden pillboxes and camouflaged slopes unleashed hell. Artillery shells slammed the surf. Machine guns tore across the sand. Mortar pounded landing craft. In minutes, bodies dropped faster than medics could help. Radios buzzed with panic. Vehicles burned. Fresh waves of Marines struggled to climb. The beach, all exposed, all sitting ducks. The Japanese had planned this perfectly. They let the enemy land freely, get comfortable, then trapped them. Kuribayashi didn't intend to hold the beach. He meant to turn it into a slaughterhouse, and it worked. As Marines pushed inland, they faced a terrifying maze of craters, tunnels, and death that obeyed no rules. No front lines existed. Clearing one enemy bunker meant another could attack from behind. Traditional weapons failed here. The fight grew stranger and deadlier with every step. Safe zones vanished. Enemy lines blurred. The Japanese fortress was the island itself, and the worst of it, the pillboxes. These weren't simple bunkers, they were death machines. Reinforced with steel and concrete, built to survive tank shells and naval bombardment. Entrances hidden behind rocks, angled to avoid fire. Gun ports overlapped, so each covered the other. Charging one meant death from another you couldn't see. Beneath them, tunnels connected each pillbox, destroy one bunker, and the enemy could slip back through tunnels to ambush from behind. The Marines fought ghosts ahead, beside, and beneath them. Grenades and gunfire only worked if you could get close, but getting close meant crawling over open ground under relentless machine gun fire, and the pillbox's zigzag interior soaked up blasts, sparing defenders. It was a brutal fight for every inch, tearing the Marines apart. Then came the desperate idea, the Flamethrower. An old weapon, nearly forgotten since World War I. But now the Marines' last hope. Fire ignored walls, doors, and oxygen levels. It flooded every corner, choking enemies and burning all hiding places. Marines strapped flames to their backs, armed only with pistols and fire. But the horror wasn't just what flamethrowers did to the enemy, it was what they did to the men who carried them. The first flamethrowers on Uima were the M2 model, beasts that required both strength and madness. Fully loaded, they weighed around 70 pounds, with 2 heavy fuel tanks and a nitrogen propellant tank strapped like a bomb to the operator's back. The fuel was a thick jelly of gasoline and diesel, sticky and endlessly burning. The nozzle had a white phosphorus igniter that spat fire up to 30 yards for just 10 seconds. 10 seconds, that brief burst, meant life or death. Every operator knew, one chance to burn, then you were empty and exposed. The most hunted man on the battlefield, Japanese soldiers, called flamethrower men demons. Commanders ordered their elimination at all costs. Operators were ambushed, shot on sight, or captured. That fate terrified them most. One Marine recalled watching a fellow flamethrower soldier charge a cave, his weapon misfired. Before he could escape, 2 Japanese grabbed him into darkness. For 2 days, nearby Marines heard his screams, then silence. No rescue came. Flamethrower men begged their comrades to shoot them if captured, knowing the horror waiting. Even survivors rarely spoke of what they saw, the screams, the smell, the burning flesh trapped in caves. Carrying that weight broke men physically and mentally. Nightmares followed many home, haunting them for life. Flamethrowers didn't just kill, they forced a moral reckoning. You weren't shooting at a distance, you were burning men alive, feet away. Though many said they were just doing their duty, years later many admitted they never found peace with what they'd done. The M2 produced flames over 1,000 F. In caves and bunkers. It vaporized oxygen in seconds, causing instant collapse. Some studies say victims lost consciousness before pain, others aren't sure. But for those who used it, the act never felt clean. One operator said after clearing a pillbox he vomited at what he saw inside. He sat silent for an hour before his officer ordered him back to fight. No time for guilt, no space for feeling. The flamethrower tanks were highly flammable and heavily targeted. Some thought a single bullet could ignite them like a bomb. That wasn't quite true. The fuel was pressurized, not rigged, but the fear was real. Just the thought of becoming a human torch haunted every step. Many operators refused to use flamethrowers again. Some threw up before missions, others never told families what they'd done. The flamethrower saved lives by ending impossible fight, but it also broke the men who used it. As operator losses climbed past 90%, commanders made a grim choice. Put the flame inside a tank. The M4A3R3 Sherman, a medium tank modified to replace its gun with a Flamethrower, known as the Flame Sherman. It changed the battle. Where the M2 could shoot 30 yards, the tank could reach nearly 100. Where a man had 10 seconds of flame, the tank carried 300 gallons of fuel for multiple bursts. Most importantly, it had armor able to push close to bunkers without being shredded. But the soft volcanic ash bogged down treads, making tanks easy targets. The Japanese focused everything on destroying the flame tanks. Suicide charges, hidden mines, traps. Every Flame Sherman was a priority kill. Crews trapped inside risked being burned alive in seconds, but they pushed forward. Infantry provided cover. Regular tanks flanked them. Flame Shermans rolled up, angled toward tunnels and bunkers, then unleashed hellfire so fierce it melted steel and glass. Their psychological effect was crushing. Enemy positions surrendered at the sight. Others fled into smoke. Some Marines said it was like watching hell break loose. Despite the horror, the flamethrowers worked without them. The island might never have been taken. One Marine's story rose above all. Herschel Woody Williams. On February 23, 1945, the same day the flag rose over Mount Suribachi, another fierce fight raged below. Woody, a quiet Marine from West Virginia, was given what many called a suicide mission: destroy pillboxes that had pinned down his whole company. Others had died trying. No one wanted the job. Woody said yes. With 4 Marines covering him, 2 died within minutes. He crawled across the volcanic ash, flamethrower strapped tight. Japanese steel and hate awaited him. The pillboxes were dug deep, arranged for overlapping fire. Every step met with bursts of bullets, but Woody moved with calm, hiding behind ridges and craters, choosing moments. He crept to the first pillbox, found a narrow slit, and shoved the nozzle in. He pulled the trigger. A blast of fire tore through. Screams, silence, no pause. Woody moved to the next, then the next. Between assaults, he ran back for fresh fuel. Each burst lasted seconds, but by the end, he'd cleared 7 bunkers alone. A Japanese soldier charged with a bayonet. Woody turned, fired flames, stopped the attack. Relentless, focused, mechanical. Some said he moved like he was already dead. When the dust settled, the Americans advanced because of him. What set Woody apart wasn't strength, it was calm under fire and refusing to freeze in fear. He never bragged, he never broke. When the war ended, Woody didn't call himself a hero. He couldn't forget the sights or his weapons' horrors, but the Marines never forgot him. Woody Williams earned the Medal of Honor, the only flamethrower operator in World War II. To do so, his story became legend, but the truth behind the medal was darker than glory. Woody lived until 2022, passing at 98. Even then, Uema's memories lay just beneath the surface. In interviews, he admitted forgetting much of the battle, a defense to protect his mind. What stayed clear were the faces of friends who didn't return, the ones who gave their lives to give him seconds more, their names carved in stone while he walked among the living. "I never thought I was a hero," Woody said. "The heroes are the ones who never came home." His humility hid deep pain. Decades later, he wrestled with what he'd done. His weapon didn't just kill, it incinerated. It erased lives, and though it helped win battles, it left scars on both sides. Woody never glorified the flamethrower, respected its need, but mourned its price. He wasn't alone. Many flamethrower operators kept silent about their roles. Some never told families, others lived alone, crushed by guilt and trauma. Veterans groups saw higher rates of alcoholism, depression, and suicide among flame troops. The flamethrower worked too well. Psychiatrists studying war trauma found flamethrower users suffered the deepest moral wounds. They didn't just take lives, they extinguished them in a way that felt unnatural. The memory of flesh and fire, cave screams echoing in smoke, stayed locked inside. The military retired flamethrowers in the 1970s. Officially because they were outdated, unofficially because they were too cruel. But their legacy lived on, not for the men who carried them, not for those who faced them, not for those who still see nightmares after you. The world saw flamethrowers as symbols of war's darkest edge. Nations quietly removed them from arsenals. Military ethics debates began on whether flamethrower use was a war crime. International treaties set limits. In 1980, the UN Convention on certain conventional weapons listed incendiaries for restriction. Though not banned outright, their use against civilians became forbidden. Modern armies, including the US, distanced from Flamage for ruse. It wasn't just about killing power anymore, it was about conscience. Because flamethrowers forced soldiers to confront war's brutal truth. Not glory, not medals, but screams and fire. No weapon made men burn their enemy. Face to face like this, the Marines who carried flamethrowers weren't monsters. They were men forced into a cruel choice. Human torches sent into darkness, knowing few would return. Of 335 operators sent to you, only 18 came back alive, a 92% casualty rate. Most died before firing, others caught after. Flames died. Those who survived were never the same, but they did what had to be done, because in that volcanic hell, no other way forward existed. In the end, Uema was taken, the flag raised, the Pacific War edged closer to Japan. But for those carrying fire, victory came with a silent, terrible cost. Maybe that's why this story matters, because some weapons leave wounds no one can see, and some men carry burdens no armor can lift.